The new Sons of Apollo album, MMXX 2020. What did you think?
Yeah. Well, first there are two ex Dream Theater guys in the band, and I am
Hmm.
wearing a Dream Theater shirt in honor of that. So it's an acceptable slip up, my friend.
Yes.
But yeah, you alluded to it. So, you know, Jimmy kind of asked me if I could review this album along with him. And I said, look, typically I don't like these supergroups. There's a lot of supergroups now because, if you're not in a mega band, it's hard to make a living doing music being in just one band. So there's a lot of guys who do a lot of these supergroup side projects kind of things. And, I don't love a lot of them because rarely does the whole equal the sum of the parts. You have
Yes,
some
yes,
great
yes.
players, but it rarely makes for a great band or a great record. And I find that for a lot of these, I won't name any of the supergroups, but I've often found myself underwhelmed with a lot of these records.
Yep.
So, I have to say, so Jimmy asked me to kind of review this, and I listen to it, and I go through track one, and it grabs my attention. I'm like, whoa, this is good. I like this. And then you get into track two and track three, and next thing I know, I've gone through the whole record in a pretty short amount of, well, not a short amount of time because it's 8 songs, but a pretty long record. But I really, really enjoyed it. So I was very, very happily surprised, and it's probably one of the better super group,
Hmm.
records
Yeah.
that I've listened to.
And I
You know,
should add that it is being released January 17, Inside Out Records, Inside Out Music, sorry. And it's not Dream Theater, it's Sons of Apollo. So, a couple of standout tracks for you.
well, like I said, there's only 8 tracks on the record because the tracks are, fairly long. I think the shortest track on the record is almost 5 minutes, and one of my favorite tracks is actually a 16-minute epic. We'll get to that in a second. But for me, a track called King of Delusion, really nice piano intro from Derek Sherinian, and then kind of a crushing groove throughout the song.
You know
And
what? I'm going to stop you right there. I agree with you. That is the best track on the
okay,
album, hands down, King of Delusion. And again, like you mentioned, it's Derek Sherinian who's actually stealing the show with a beautiful piano intro. I mean, and a beautiful jazzy piano bit in the middle, and then
yeah,
that fast build up, and the end of the song builds up like the song Black Sabbath. You know the ending of Black Sabbath.
yeah.
And then Jeff Scott Soto, instead of being melodic and soothing, he's like kind of yelling and screaming at the end. Best track on the album, and this is where it differentiates itself. This album from the first album that they did. Go ahead. Sorry to cut
Well,
you
and,
off.
and so, and you and I don't compare notes beforehand, so it's
No.
interesting that I had that one first on my list, and you feel it's the best track on the record as well. And you mentioned Jeff Scott Soto, so I'm a big Jeff Scott Soto fan, and you know Jeff did great work with Malmsteen. He had some of his own bands. He was in Journey Live for a little while. He's out with Trans Siberian Orchestra. We just finished up with Trans Siberian Orchestra. And Jeff's vocal style has always been more of like a Journey Queen, kind of more melodic, like you said.
Hmm.
So what really impressed me throughout the record and on this song as well is Jeff Scott Soto is singing more aggressively and maybe even in a more kind of metallic tone than I've ever heard him sing. And I really, really enjoyed that. And like I said, I love the melodic side of Jeff Scott Soto. He's always been, one of my favorite singers, which is one of the compelling things about this record for me.
Yep.
But I've never heard him kind of deliver in the way he delivers with Sons of Apollo. So, hats off to Jeff for kind of, giving us something different than what we've heard of some of his other
Yeah.
projects. But
Yeah.
I
Agreed. Agreed.
love the way he sings. And then there was another tune. I found it kind of dark and soulful. And maybe that's where you see a bit more of the soul in Jeff's voice, but it's still heavy. It was a song called Desolate July. So,
Yeah.
there's no ballads on the album, but if there's
Space
any,
rock. It starts off
yeah,
space
yeah,
rock.
yeah, it's airy. Yeah, I can kind of see where you'd say that, Jimmy. So, I enjoyed Desolate July as well.
And I think saying it's a darker song is the correct way to sort of like define it.
Yep, yep. Then there's a song called Asphyxiation, which there's kind of more of a 90s vibe in there, I would say.
Hmm.
So and that there's nothing wrong with that. I know kind of 90s metal gets a bad rap, but some good stuff came out in the 90s as well.
Yep.
And there's some crazy keyboard work and Asphyxiation as well. And it's here and other ones where I think you really kind of hear the Dream Theater influence. So, I will say, if somebody asked me to compare this record to anything else, because you have two guys that were in Dream Theater, you have, Jeff Scott Soto, who I've mentioned has worked with so many different people. You have Billy Sheehan, from the David Lee Roth Band and Mr. Big and Talus, Bumblefoot, of course. So you have guys who've done a lot of different things. But if you ask me who this sounds the most like, for me, it sounds like early Dream Theater. It sounds like Awake. It sounds a little bit like Falling into Infinity, but definitely some earlier Dream Theater records, which I really, really enjoy, which is maybe why this record grabbed me so much. So I thought Asphyxiation had a nice 90s feel.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with the first album. The first album was fantastic. And this is a continuation and sort of branching out a little more on this album. And it's more of a prog rock, like definitely more of a prog hard rock album.
Yeah, the first record I gave a courtesy listen, and maybe I kind of fell victim to, like I said, that bias that I don't like supergroups. And maybe, if I would go back and listen to it now after hearing this record, I'd probably appreciate it more. Yeah. But like I said, being asked to review this record and really giving it my attention, I really, really enjoyed it. And, if I could just mention another couple tracks, like I said, there's only 8 tracks on the record. All you want. Fall to Ascend. Yeah. And that's where I thought Portnoy, like Portnoy did his best drum work on the record. That was really, really some crazy. You can just picture Mike on this huge kit and using all of it. And if you're kind of a drum geek and a Mike Portnoy fan and kind of like that Pert-like drum work where, he's using this enormous kit.
And those are the 2 first singles in the first 2 videos. And you really, when you watch them in the videos, you get excited because they're just what it is. It's a melodic, it's like verse, chorus, but then you have that big middle where everybody's sort of jamming out.
Yeah, but the drum geek in me came out in that song. Yes. So I'm sure, if you're a fan of this band, you're probably into virtuoso musicianship. Yeah. And I think Fall to Ascend will be that song if you're a drum geek that you're really going to gravitate to.
I agree.
And then there's a 16-minute epic, like I mentioned. Not a lot of bands could get away with putting a 16-minute song on a record these days. Yep. So you're not going to hear that one on the radio anywhere anytime soon. And the cool thing I liked about this song called New World Today was that, it takes you on a bit of a journey because like a 16-minute song just can't be the same thing for 16 minutes. It almost has to be delivered in parts that transition well from one to the next. And it kind of holds your attention because it's not easy to hold your attention through a 16-minute song. And like this thing held my attention. I kind of really enjoyed the flow of that song. So
because what it does, it has sections, and sort of like a different, like for example, it starts off a very Yes-like. Early Yes from the Yes album, if anybody knows the Yes album, very similar. Even the keyboard sort of organ-ish, but a little jumping up and down. And the guitar is very Steve Howe oriented. It's got a lot of, instead of rhythm, it's got solos. Not solos, but playing more notes. So yeah, it's a great track. I agree. 10 out of 10 on that track.
And I didn't mention, so like I've mentioned 5 of the tracks already as my favorites. There's 3 others, and they're not bad tracks at all. Maybe they didn't grab my attention as much as these other 5. But, without a doubt, it's a really, really solid record from start to finish.
I kind of like Resurrection Day, and for the people who don't know Resurrection Day, it's the keyboards, again, this is what I love about Derek Sherinian. He's always using different sounds on his keyboard. He's not just sticking to one sound. He's really pushing the limits on that keyboard, or maybe it's like a mini Moog sound, or piano or jazz. He's just pushing the limits on the keyboards, and it's got a very Rick Wakeman-ish very sound. And there's a bass solo on Resurrection Day, if you remember that.
Yeah, and the funny thing is like, here we are talking about Mike and Derek and Jeff Scott Soto and Bumblefoot's guitar work. Yeah. We've barely mentioned Billy Sheehan, right? Because usually most records that Billy Sheehan's on, he's on that record within 3 seconds of the first song, right? Because you're kind of hearing those flashy bass runs. So, I almost felt like in a lot of the songs, not that Billy was in the background, but he didn't have his feature part. And you're right, in that song,
that's the only one.
That's Billy's chance where he kind of goes Billy Sheehan on you, Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of, again, the 2 singles are the first track, which was Goodbye Divinity, and Fall to Ascend. Again, they're very similar in nature. You know, again, like they got sort of like the midsection where everybody's just jamming and just,
Yeah.
you know, and there is hints of Dream Theater. There's hints of Yes there. There's hints of just hard rock in general in Prague. You know.
Yeah. And that's, again, while I wasn't a fan of supergroups, I've always been a prog fan. And if I look at the individual bands that all of these guys have been in, I've been a fan of all of those bands.
Yep.
And so I'm glad to see that, for once we maybe got, not over the top, but like you said, a sprinkle of Dream Theater,
Yep.
a sprinkle of kind of some of the stuff Billy Sheehan has done, a sprinkle of, Derek Sherinian's been, I think the reason why the keyboards are so interesting and diverse.
Yeah, Derek
He's worked with Alice Cooper. He's worked with Billy Idol. He's worked with Dream Theater. He's done his own projects. He's played in his career lots of diverse kinds of music.
Mm-hmm.
And, this record definitely has a style, right? It's not all over the place. So it's kind of like, it's in this kind of pocket where, if you like this kind of music, you're going to like it. But it's also diverse enough for you to say, hey, this is kind of cool. And, there's a few different things happening here that I can get into. So
I'm like you. Like there were a few, and if I was to say any negative, I would say the same sort of negative I give to Dream Theater. If you ever heard my reviews on Dream Theater, it's sort of like the guitar. If you were to remove all the instruments and just leave the guitar, the rhythm guitar, it's like dang, 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 dang. Like you don't know what song it is. It's sort of like a chug chug down tune, and Dream Theater sort of falls into that same sort of mistake, I'll call it, where you don't really know what. Like the rhythm guitar has no melody. And again, this is very small. Few parts are like this. The majority of the album is excellent. The Bumblework does an excellent, guitar work on this. But they sort of like Dream Theater. Sometimes you just remove all the instruments and you don't even know what song it is if you just listen to the rhythm guitar. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, and look, I'm a big fan of Dream Theater,
Same.
but there's definitely records that I love, and there's records that I never listen to because of what you just described. That just the record just seems like this repetitive kind of chugga chugga. Songs aren't
down-tuned chug chugs, basically.
Yeah,
that's what they are. They're down-tuned chug chugs. Like for example, take "Spirit of Radio" by Rush. Remove all the instruments, leave that intro, and it's that song, right? Because the rhythm guitar has some sort of melody. Again, even Rush, after doing like 20 something albums, you're going to run out of ideas too, right? But I'm just saying that sometimes Dream Theater, and just in a few times, Sons of Apollo fall victim to this chug chug down to rhythm guitar, and that's my only con. The production is excellent, the songs are excellent. I think this is just as good as the last album, and some parts even better because it is more experimental. There's more variety in this album. Jeff Scott Soto, excellent melodies that are memorable, which is key here. And the drumming is fantastic. The bass work is fantastic. Bumblefoot does an excellent job. This guy's an incredible guitarist. And Sherinian is actually the star for me. The keyboards are actually, he's like one of my favorite keyboardists because he likes to push the limits on the keyboard. And I know I said that before, but I'll say it again.
Well, look, and I compared it to a good Dream Theater record, right? I compared it to Awake, which I think a lot of people regard as one of the better Dream Theater records. If I, a Dream Theater fan, I'm comparing this to one of the better Dream Theater records, just so people have a frame of reference. Like, I don't want to insult the band or anything like that. Like, they're certainly doing their own thing. Sure. But, for me, I hear early Awake style Dream Theater, which I think for me is a compliment, and I'm sure a lot of people will take that as a compliment as well.
Yeah. All right. So there you go. Run out and get it. I know that you rated an 8 out of 10. I rated an 8 out of 10. Definitely worth picking up. Quickly, give me your thoughts on some 2020 releases that you're excited about. How's that?
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, not 100% sure what we'll be seeing. There's obviously the big names, right? So the big rumor that came out lately was, Iron Maiden has just finished up work on their new record with Kevin Shirley, which is maybe a good thing, maybe not a good thing. So I think, late summer, fall, we might be seeing a new Iron Maiden record. Yeah. I probably would have been more excited about a new Iron record many moons ago than I am now. Mm-hmm. Because the records since the reunion have been hit or miss. Some of them I really, really like, and some of them just are kind of meh for me. But I guess I'm always hopeful when I hear a new Iron Maiden record is coming out. So at very least, I'm curious to hear what Maiden might have planned next for us. Because, Book of Souls was pretty good. It's not the best record I've ever heard.
Yep.
But I think it was better than the Final Frontier that came before it. So, if they continue that progression, I think they might come up with something very interesting for us. So,
and this month, Ozzy too.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and Ozzy, less excited about, even though I haven't really disliked the singles and videos we've heard as a prelude to the record, but, there's still a lot of that, you ask yourself, was he even in the studio when it was recorded, right? Like a lot of auto-tune. A lot of it sounds like leftovers from the Black Sabbath 13 sessions.
Yeah.
Which, I liked the Black Sabbath 13 record.
Not too bad.
But, Under the Graveyard and some of the first stuff we've heard, for me, it sounds like outtakes from that session.
Mm-hmm.
But look, it'll be worth a listen. But I think I'm a little bit more excited about New Maiden than New Ozzy. Since we're on supergroups, right, I think they've released the first single. We're supposed to be seeing a record from a band called Black Swan pretty soon. And
there you go.
Black Swan features Robin McCauley on vocals, also one of my favorite vocalists. Jeff Pilson is in the band, so great bass player and a guy who does some great vocals as well. So that's going to be kind of an interesting project. So Black Swan, now that I'm back into supergroups again, Black Swan might be something that I'm going to be checking.
Jeff has been in a lot of groups, a lot of supergroups.
Might have to get off my supergroups soapbox and accept these supergroups a little bit more.
Well, you know what? I'm with you. I mean, we also have British Lion. If anybody's excited about that one, British Lion.
I mean, look, Steve Harris is the draw there, but look, I think British Lion would have to step it up if they're going to impress Maiden fans. Like, I think people might be listening to British Lion because Steve Harris is in the band.
Yeah.
But I can't say they've done anything memorable yet. But I'm all ears when the record comes out. But they're going to need to step up their game, I would say.
Biff Byford is coming out with his solo album. I think it's like February or end of January, around there sometime.
Yeah, and you and I love Saxon, and we love the guys in Saxon, and it'll be interesting, I think, to hear what Biff can do outside of Saxon. And from what I hear, this record is a little bit like autobiographical and kind of, where he came from sort of thing, at least from a song and tone wise.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to hear that.
Yep.
There's been rumblings that Testament are working on a new record, and, Chuck Billy Joe said there's going to be no ballads on this record. So, I think the last few things Testament have done have been pretty kind of brutal in a good way, aggressive. So, Death Angel gave us a really high quality album last year. So it'll be interesting to see, what another Bay Area legendary thrasher band can do. So, Testament. And, I don't know what else might be on the list. There's always, it's not as
I'll tell you,
black and white as it used to be. What do you got on your pocket?
We got Anvil, we got Sepultura, we have Annihilator, we have Mastodon, we have Demons and Wizard. So there's a lot of cool albums coming in. There's more than that. I'm just giving you a list of that I kind of wrote down that I'm sort of like on the radar. Talked about Annihilator already. I just got the promos for Anvil. I haven't really listened to it yet, but still early. It's in February.
Yeah, so I'll be curious to hear that. And look, I think when you did your 2019 recap show with Alan, and I think we all chimed in with our choices, a lot of people in the comments felt that 2019 wasn't a banner year for new releases.
Right. Yeah.
And it was somewhat difficult to kind of pinpoint what people thought the records of the year were.
Yep.
And, this year, just with some of the names that you mentioned, and even this Sons of Apollo record could be an early frontrunner to be in people's top 10 for the year,
Yeah, I find when they're released in January, people forget about them.
Yeah, they're on the cusp of the 2 years, right? On the border of the 2 years. And then, Jimmy, we haven't mentioned, AC/DC, right? So there's that rumor around for the longest time that is this were they really in Vancouver,
No, they weren't.
or were those old photos? And are Brian Johnson, Angus Young, Phil Rudd, and Cliff Williams recording in Vancouver with, using stuff that Malcolm, had left in the archives before he passed away? So, there's been rumblings of the new AC/DC record and, of course, an AC/DC tour at some point in 2020. So
Megadeth.
there could be some big names, right? Yeah, I
New
mean,
Megadeth. That's
I
thank you
think it'll
for
be
reminding
very,
me.
yeah,
Heavy metal Justin. Yeah, new Megadeth's
yeah.
coming.
And I think that'll be very interesting to hear, Dave Mustaine fighting back from cancer. How does that influence his songwriting,
Yeah.
his worldview, or any number of things? So I think, a new Megadeth record could be interesting just to kind of, try and understanding, what Dave Mustaine has been through and if that's going to come through in the writing and that sort of thing. So it could be the most interesting Megadeth record we've heard in a long time just because of, what Dave's been through.
Yep. So actually, Perrin, I'm off to the Metal Hall of Fame. Hopefully, unless we get snowed in and we can't get off the ground or they can't fuel our airplane.
Well, there's worse things that can happen to an airplane, right? So
Anybody wants free tickets, send me a message right here, and maybe I'll send you some free tickets. I got a whole bunch. So put your name down there, and I'll send me an
yeah,
email, and I'll send you some tickets on this.
your
Go ahead.
your reward, people, for tuning in on our YouTube show is free tickets to the Metal Hall of Fame. And this is turning. I think Jimmy, you were telling me off the record, where like 700 tickets or 700 people are coming. So this Metal Hall of Fame is becoming kind of a bigger thing. It's getting bigger and bigger every day. So some pretty cool inductions, and a lot of people planning to attend the ceremony.
Yeah, yeah. So Ashley wants tickets. So go on Facebook and send me a message on the Metal Voice, Ashley, and we'll send you 2 tickets. And again, there's no transportation involved here, no transportation, and no lodging. It's just the tickets themselves. So just send me. I want to be the first one. Okay, well, you could be the first one. Just go to Facebook on the Metal Voice and send a message and send me your email address, and we'll send you 2 tickets, okay? That's pretty easy. Anybody else? Do we have any takers? And I get it. If you don't live in California.
Get to California on short notice, I'd be a taker, but I think I'll be there with you next year.
So we got how many bands get inducted per year? I don't know. It depends.
There's no.
We're not gonna. Let's say about artists and bands. There's about 8 generally, 8 to 10. I think this year, Perrin, is going to be the biggest year because there's Amazon Prime is going to be filming this to be shown in February, and there's a lot of big wigs going to be there. A lot of artists are going to be in the audience. This year is probably going to be the biggest year, and I'm going to tell you, I think it's going to be jam packed. So it's going to be exciting, very exciting. I hope I get there. I hope there's no issues. There's snow.
You got to get Entertainment's doing the red carpet arrivals.
I'm sorry.
We got to get Entertainment Network doing the red carpet arrivals. That'll be next year.
No,
maybe.
I do that. That's what I do.
Oh yeah, you're doing the red carpet. All right.
Well, I do the red carpet every year, but last year what happened? I got pushed off the red carpet. It was just too crowded. I was going, I can't do this. It was like a scrum, news scrum, and I kind of so I just went off on the side and I did interviews like that. So.
I want to see everyone's outfit. There's going to be someone rocking the skull cane and top hat, and I want to see what our friends are all going to be wearing on this night.
Thor will be there. Did I tell you Thor's going to be there?
Yeah. Well, I bet I know what he's going to be wearing.
I told him to bring his hammer.
All right. It is.
And Riot Act, which is basically Lou Cavaris and Rick Ventura, the original guitarists of Riot, who are continuing the Riot tradition. They'll be playing a Riot set of classics.
Early Riot. That's fantastic.
Yep. And who else? I don't want to give it all away, but I know Joe Satriani will be there. Steve Vai will be there. And they're, I don't want to, rumors, I'll say.
Surprise, maybe.
Rumors that they will get together and do something. So I'm not saying nothing more than that. There might be a press release on that. Let's just say Steve Vai, Joe Satriani will be getting together on stage, get in here for me, and performing and doing something.
Yeah,
they might even be holding
guitars. Where? Who knows? Right, Jimmy? They might even be holding guitars. Who knows?
And I will be introducing a band there. I'm trying to think of a Canadian joke to say right beforehand. I gotta look at the Canadian joke dictionary.
Who writes their material? Yeah.
Apparently me. Okay.
You have time to write something on the plane.
How does it take to get inducted? Well, let's not get through this complicated process right now. It's a long story. We'll save it for another show. What else can I tell you? So, Anybody else want some free tickets? Now is the time to ask me, like right now. Right now. Right now. Perrin?
I'd love to go, but can't make it to California on my own. I'll be there next year. While we're waiting for a few people to answer, the other thing Jimmy's doing on Saturday is he'll be in Vegas seeing night number 3 of the David Lee Roth residency at the House of Blues at Mandalay Bay.
Yeah.
So David Lee Roth starts tonight in Vegas. We'll work out the kinks tonight and I think on Friday. And then Jimmy will be kind of giving us a report as he heads to California.
Yep.
As to what's happening with David Lee Roth in Vegas. And like I'm actually really curious to wake up tomorrow morning and find out the set list for David Lee Roth.
Me too.
And is he kind of doing Van Halen? Is he doing Eat 'Em and Smile stuff? Is he kind of going to do his, California Girls, just a gigolo kind of thing?
Yep.
So, or is he doing everything but the kitchen sink? So, and is it going to be a theatrical show or just straight ahead music? And, his band of young guns, how good or not good are they? So I'm really looking forward to hearing your report, but also just kind of just snooping around the internet tomorrow to see what Diamond Dave has going on. So I envy you, my friend. It's going to be a pretty cool trip, I think, between the Middle Hall of Fame.
My biggest worry is there's going to be a snowstorm and my plane's not going to get off the ground, or there was some problems at the airport with the fuelers, right? There's a strike on the guys who fuel up the planes. Kind of worried I won't get off the ground and miss the show. That's what I'm trying to say. But anyways, it is what it is. I'll do my best, and I'm excited.
Yeah, I think they're going to get rain on Friday. You're good, buddy. You're going to be good.
Okay, good. And by the way, I'm going to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, who's playing there?
Nobody. I'm just taking a helicopter. I'm taking a chopper to the Grand Canyon. It's going to land in it because I figured, got to see the Grand Canyon. Never seen the Grand Canyon before.
Yeah, there you go. So a little bit of nature, a little bit of culture, and a little bit of rock and roll on Jimmy's Western adventure.
And then I'm just on my tour. I'm starting off with David Lee Roth, and then I'm driving from Vegas to California, and from there on, then my next tour date will be on the 15th at the Hall of Heavy Metal History, right? And then after that, and by the way, if you're in the LA area, there's a NAMM Jam. Neil Turbin. He's doing an Am Jam. It's Betsy Bitch. Kelly Rhodes, Neil Turbin are the headliners. So if you want to catch that, there's some information. January the 10th. And you got to go to the Metal Voice Facebook page. There's a picture there. You got to look for the address of what's going on there. What else is going on that's Metal Voice related? This year I'm going to go to Randy Rhodes' sister's wine tasting restaurant. Is that cool or what?
Look at you.
Yeah. I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to go to the Rainbow, and then I'm going to go to NAMM on Saturday. So that's next week on Saturday. Not this week, next weekend.
Cool.
That's my tour. That's my West Coast tour.
Right.
And that's it. And I just bored everybody. Okay.
It's all right, man. We have a lot of stuff going on in the Metal Voice. We'll talk about it in the coming months, but I'll be at M3 representing the Metal in May.
That's
so
right.
The opposite of the California vibe. M3 is in Baltimore, Maryland, or just outside of Baltimore, Maryland. But Night Ranger, Rat, Tesla, Accept, Y&T, Kicks, kind of more of a rock and roll hair metal vibe. But the Metal Voice is going to be everywhere this year.
Yes. Okay. All right. So everybody, thank you for tuning in. And Sons of Apollo, go pick it up. Great album. 2020 is going to be a great year. Okay, Perrin, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night, bud.
You too. Bye.
Bye, everybody.